Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Locker Room Podcast. This is a podcast that features a new student athlete at West Liberty University every single week. Once again, we are sponsored by Primanti Brothers at the Highlands, and I'm your host, Kelsey Kyle. All right, so over the last week, we have some few different things to recap. First off, women's basketball player Corinne Thomas scored her 1,000th career point here at West Liberty. For the wrestling team, Ty McGeary was selected as MEC Wrestler of the Week for the second time this season, and wrestler Parker Bentley won the Little State Invite for his weight class. Makai Anderson, Kiara Ross, and Sierra Lanham all broke school records for indoor track and field. Volleyball player Nia Setla was named All-American for the second time in her career, and both our men's basketball team and our wrestling team remain ranked number 2 in the nation. Today's guest is women's track and cross-country runner Hannah Kemp. She is from Bethesda, Ohio, and in her 5th year at West Liberty. She is a 2-time All-Region and All-MEC runner in both cross-country and track. She was the 2022 CRA National Trail Champion and the 2021 MEC Cross-Country Runner of the Year. She also holds West Liberty school records for indoor track in the mile run and the 3,000 meter, as well as outdoor records in the 1,500, 5,000, and 10,000 meter. Welcome to the podcast, Hannah.
Hello.
All right. So typically we just start every episode with going back to the beginning so we can kind of find out what your background was like to get you here to where you are and to everything that's led up to being on the podcast today.
Okay.
So I feel like with track and cross country, it's a little different than some other sports. So why don't you just tell me about how you started running and your whole like the beginning of all of that?
Okay. Well, I've always been like a pretty outdoor kid. But in 6th grade, we have this thing called the turkey trot, and you do it all in middle school, and it's a mile race. And I just, ran it. Literally didn't like have any expectations, we'll say. And the computer teacher that was in charge of it was the coach of cross country at the time. And he was like, I got first for the girls, and he was like, you should really think about going off cross country. And I was like, I mean, I don't do anything else, so what have I got to lose? And so I ran my first 5K that summer in our hometown, and I placed all right. The pictures looking back at it, I looked very rough. It was very hard. I think I ran like 27 minutes or so. So nothing great. But after that, I was like, okay, I'll go out for cross country, and I started running cross country in 7th grade.
Wow, that's awesome that you just kind of like stumbled upon it in a way.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Did you play any other sports or do anything else growing up?
So when I was 9, I started swimming in the summer, and I was on swim team for Barnesville, which is the town next to us.
Okay.
Actually, it's our rival team for Union Local, where I went to high school and everything. So yeah, I swam for 10 years.
Okay, nice. So like once you started running cross country, you were also still swimming too?
Yes.
Okay. So then you started with cross country, kind of like training for the first time. When did you start doing track too?
7th grade as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like you just started with cross country in the fall and then went ahead and ran track in the spring too?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So then you did both of those things all the way through high school?
Yes. And then my sophomore year of high school, my mom and I started a swim team at our school. So I did that the last 3 years of my high school career as well.
Wow, that is awesome. As far as like running goes, were you always more of a distance runner?
I would say in the beginning, I laugh now because I didn't really know the difference between like a distance runner and like a sprinter, and I called myself a sprinter. I'm like, I'm so fast, I'm a sprinter. Like I wasn't really fast at all. I just run around and like, do whatever, but I didn't even know really the true difference between compared to now.
Yeah. So whenever you were like in middle school and high school, did you just typically run like 5Ks as far as training, since that's what it is in high school, right? You run a 5K for like the cross country trails?
Yeah, we didn't really like mileage really wasn't a focus at our school. I had a really great coach. He always like modeled like positivity and just having fun and enjoying it. And I'd say that was a really good foundation, even though I didn't really have maybe the running like foundation. We trained pretty low in mileage, but he did focus on like the attitude and environment, which I think was a really great thing to have.
Definitely, it probably helped you like enjoy it more
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So what was, I guess, the first time you ran like a longer distance? And I guess like the first time you ran for like a longer distance, did you like kind of get shocked that you could run for that long?
Oh, let's see. I think like there were times when I like wanted to see what my body was capable of and like
Yeah.
just run further. So a few times I would go on my own and run in Bar Camp. It's the state park near us.
Okay.
And I would just go run on the trails by myself and I would just go like, run like 7 or 8 miles. But to me at the time that was so far.
That's so
And
far from me right now for sure.
and I was like, wow, I can actually do this. So I don't know that like there was ever really a race early on that I like realized that. It was more of just like training like on my own. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I think I can do that.
Okay, just kind of like pushing yourself and seeing what you can do.
Right, yeah.
Nice. So then in high school, when did you start to think, or maybe who helped you realize that you could continue on and run at the next level in college?
So one of the girls that I trained really close with in high school was Megan Bateman. She was 2 years ahead of me,
Okay.
and she ran for California University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so she did really well. They made it to the NCAA's for regionals. Well, I guess it'd be nationals. And I just like I thought that was really cool, but I still wasn't sure. And my coach at the time was like, you should really think about running in college. And I was like, I don't know. And he asked me one day, and I was like, well, I mean, I thought about West Liberty, but I don't know.
Hmm.
And so I someone in my family had told someone else and heard through the grapevine and you know um people were putting out the word for me but I really didn't like I wasn't really sought out, we'll
Hmm.
say. um so actually you mind me like skipping to like how I got here
No, that's
because it's
completely
kind of
fine.
a
Yeah,
kind
it
of a
all kind
weird
of goes together.
it's kind of a weird story, but so apparently a family friend works here at the university. Her name is Peggy Howe, and she had gone into our previous coach, Coach Simpson's office at the time. He was in a meeting, and I remember him telling me this. He was like, "I'm sitting there," and she like walks in and was like, "You should really think about Hannah Kemp," and he was like, "Huh?" And so that's when he kind of like looked into me and he had reached out and we kept in contact for a bit and then I decided and ended up here and actually I hadn't met him before and I was at a black and gold day in November my senior year and I was like, Mom, I think that looks like the cross country coach. And the next thing you know, we're talking to him. He takes us out to the course at Bethany and then my mind's like going and that's kind of where it started.
That's awesome. So whenever he like first found out about you, was that your senior year of high school?
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of
Okay.
like honestly a last minute decision. Like it really wasn't like it was late when I decided to come here, probably like April.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I hadn't really been hunted out by a lot of different schools. I hadn't really been super involved in the recruiting process. I think some of it I was just like a little intimidated by.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like a roundabout way, but I got here
No,
somehow.
that's awesome. My story is kind of similar to that too. Like I didn't commit and sign to go to Fairmont, I don't think until like maybe April of my
Mm,
senior year too, because it's such a big decision
it is.
too.
Yeah,
Um, and so I get like so many people do like to decide early, but sometimes it just takes a little bit
it
longer to
does.
decide.
It does.
Do you think you always wanted to come or like I guess stay a little bit closer to home, or did it just work out that this was the perfect mix of everything for you?
This kind of worked out because I'll be honest, my whole family like went to high university and I'd always like dreamed of going there, but I also knew that freshman Hannah probably would flounder a little bit. And actually, the first time I came to West Liberty, I was in 7th grade, and I had a few relatives that came here, and I was like, I went on the tour and I hated it. I was like, I will never go to West Liberty. I was like, nope. And then when my mom and I came to the Black and Gold Day, like something must have shifted in my brain because I fell in love with it.
Yeah. You like
And
saw it differently?
yes, and I'd only toured a few places, and I've been okay with going away from home, but I was like, this was just the right opportunity, and I was like, I couldn't pass it up.
Yeah. No, I love that. So then once you got here, what was that like transitioning from what you had done growing up and what you had done in high school to running in college?
So I was pretty fortunate because my coach at the time was always Justin Simpson. He was always very individualized with our training.
Hmm.
So he was like, you're coming from running 15 miles a week. That's not much. So we're gonna baby you for a while. So the first summer, I was like doing everything I could right. Like we had a list of things we had to try to work on, and I was always trying to check the boxes off. Always trying to like make sure I'm doing everything right. Um, because I really didn't have any expectations,
Yeah.
but I just, I didn't want to do anything wrong. So, kind of like my first encounter with the whole thing of being an athlete in the college level was when we went to Canaan Valley. That's where we always had cross country camp, and kind of like thrown into like living with our whole girls team for like a week. Didn't know any of them. I knew one of the girls, Jamie Fogel. We'd swam together. I knew of her, but didn't really know her. So I was kind of like a little intimidated, a little scared. But then I'm kind of one of those people that like once I get around people, then I like really open up.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like fell in love with it. We got to run out near the woods and stuff, and that was just kind of like a good um, way to get exposed to the sport and get to know people that I'd spent a lot of time with before we came to school. And then coming to school was a little bit of rude awakening just because, here it's really hilly. And so it's like everywhere we went, it was some back road, and that was usually the name of our route. So like when we run Gertie's Road, it's let's go run Gertie's today. Like so those were the things that I just didn't really anticipate, but were a lot of fun and just has made it a great environment.
As far as training goes, what would like just I guess be a typical like running week? Like how much would you run just like any given time?
So when I started out, it was probably around like 35 miles a week, like my freshman year.
Wow.
But I bumped up to a little over 60, like within my
In
last
a week?
yeah, with over my
Wow.
last few years. So a typical week, even cross country, even during track, we usually have like a workout on like a Tuesday and maybe either a Friday or Saturday, depending if there's a race that week. We do long runs on usually Sunday or Saturday. And then the other days we just kind of get to allocate our mileage to whatever we need for the rest of the day. So it can be anywhere from like 5 to 8.5 miles.
Oh, wow.
Workouts depends on what we're looking at that week. Sometimes we do tempos that are anywhere from like 4 to 8 miles, or fartleks, which are like where you have a faster interval and a rest interval.
Okay.
We do different repeats. And so those are kind of our workout days, and we're even allowed to double. So you run in the morning and run in the evening. So if you need to, long runs are usually based on time. So it can be anywhere from like 90 to 115 minutes. So you're looking at 12 to 15 miles.
Yeah.
So that's like sometimes those are really challenging, but I've had some of the most enjoyable runs of my life, long runs.
Yeah. So what's that like being a college student athlete? And I mean, I know that everyone, like every single sports team practices for like different set amount of times. But what's it like for that being your practice, and for like how do you schedule that in between your classes, and like how do you fit that into your normal day to know, okay, I'm going to go run for almost 2 hours?
So we have both our previous coach and our current coach lets us, aside from our practice days and race days, we get to run whenever we want, whenever we feel it in. Yeah, we have like a certain like, oh, this can be your off day or down day. But then if you have 5 or 6 miles, you can run it whatever time of day. So that's nice because then I can always schedule it around. Like there are times when we'd all meet up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, go run together, get it done. Or if we all have stuff all morning, we'll wait and go later in the day. So that was really nice because sometimes your schedule isn't always the same every day. So yeah, it wasn't like horrible. It just sometimes if the weather is, that might play into a problem.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it in the cold the way that you guys do. I don't think I'm built for that.
Up here, honestly, it's not even like the snow or the rain, it's the wind.
Yeah.
I always check the wind and I'm like, oh, are those trees blowing today? I was like, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit about your season in 2021, the year that you won the MEC championship and you were MEC runner of the year. Just tell us a little bit about what that season was like. And you can correct me if I'm wrong for that, but since that was the year coming off of COVID, was that in the spring whenever you ran that, or what was different that year?
So that was a wild year.
Yeah.
So we had a spring cross country season that didn't count.
Okay.
And so we did have a few meets. So we ran our conference meet then, and we ran it again in the fall.
Okay.
And our conference race is pretty brutal. It's on Oglebay, the Crispin course, and so there are hills. It's muddy, and I actually won it in the spring and the fall.
Okay, that makes more sense now.
And it's crazy. I believe it was those 2 years I ran like the exact same time to a T, and I don't know how I did it.
Wow.
Like I looked at the results and I'm like, wait, when did I run this race? And it was like the exact same time. But yeah, that was a crazy year. We had, I want to say our opener was in February, and
Dang.
we were going down to North Carolina, and we were thinking, oh, it's gonna be warm. And so we get down there, and they're like, we're not able to get the course preview in the night before. They're like, we'll just get there extra early in the morning. And we get there, and it's pouring down rain. It's freezing cold, and we're like, we are not prepared for this. The course was like immersed in just water. It was like up to our knees, and we were frozen. It was like the wettest, coldest race I've ever ran in my
Oh my
entire life.
gosh.
Fortunately, it was only a 5K, not the extra K.
Yeah.
But it was the most memorable, but I mean, the most crazy conditions I've ever seen in my life. There were only like a couple teams, and we're like, this is not what we came to do, but
Yeah.
it was still fun. So we had a few other meets, and then we had the conference meet, and so I was not expecting a win that day, but I've always loved hills, so that was just really exciting, and then to be able to do it again in the fall was pretty awesome. So that in the fall everything went back to normal. So that was really nice. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of weird having a spring cross country season.
Yeah, I was trying to like look up like the history of like each of your seasons, and I was looking at the dates and I was like, that must have been because of COVID. I was like, I'm just gonna have
Yeah,
to ask to be sure.
yeah.
Um, so then I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that you kind of have three separate seasons
Mhm.
throughout the year, because we have talked a lot about cross country, but then you also run indoor and outdoor track.
Yes.
So what is that like, and how do you go into each school year kind of like compartmentalizing like each of the three separate seasons? And I guess just talk a little bit about like the similarities and differences and how you like shift your mindset for each of those.
Okay, so once we start up summer training, it's kind of like, okay, that's a really good, you want to do as much as you can, get a nice cardio base for the fall.
Hmm.
And then once we conclude cross country season, which it could end anywhere from like the beginning to the end of November, depending if it's a carnival year, which means it goes an extra 2 weeks during a carnival year.
Okay.
So then right after that, we usually get like a small break, it's like maybe a week or so, just to like let our bodies rest because you know, sometimes we like to capitalize on our fitness and maybe run an indoor qualifier, so like a 5K or something, just to see what happens.
Yeah.
But usually at that point, our bodies are pretty tired. So then, you know, it's like, all right, now I'm going from running grass, running the 6K, this only like one race, one distance, to now, okay, I could be dabbling at multiple different events. You know, you have a controlled climate. So, and then you're running circles. It's
Yeah.
not so scenic anymore.
Yeah.
So then for that, you know, that is more or less the time to just train for outdoor. We always just call it that, like, it's not really a priority indoor for at least our team here.
Hmm.
It's not always a priority. It's more of, okay, we want to be fit for outdoor.
Yeah.
Let's do all we can to prevent injury, to just stay in shape, be strong, um, and hit some good qualifiers. So that's kind of what indoor is for us. And then outdoor is where we want to peak.
Yeah.
We want to be our best shape, and then the difference with that is, you know, it's not a controlled climate anymore. You could
Hmm.
have rain, you could have, you know, sleet. I mean, last year at our home meet, we had wind gusts and it's blowing the high jump mat over the track. And,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
like, so it's like there are gives and like there's pros and cons
Hmm.
about both. So that's kind of what the difference between
Yeah.
those are.
So then let's talk a little bit about this year. So this is your fifth year at West Liberty.
Yes.
So then we get started with cross country with like your training in the fall. Talk a little bit about the beginning of this cross country season and then kind of just like what it's looked like for you.
Okay. So this summer I worked away, so that was a little hard trying to like do runs and stuff. It was a pretty hilly location, so I
Hmm.
worked at a summer camp.
Okay.
So, you know, I had to get up early to get my runs in because the day was packed from 7 to 10 p.m. at night. So that was a little bit of an adjustment, but coming back to school here, we actually got a new coach.
Hmm.
Our previous coach resigned, so, you know, having someone that coaches a little bit different after being here for 4 years was a little tough, but fortunately, I knew Coach Gwynn a little bit before because he coached at Bethany. And so he didn't really want to change too much because, you know, by the time he was able to come in, it was a little bit late. Um, but, you know, I kept the mileage around the same, about 50, 55. and then I got into our first two races, and they weren't what I wanted. But then I got an injury, so I'm still unsure what that is, unfortunately. So I've been out for a couple months, um, and it's been challenging, especially because I don't know what it is. But I've almost been able to have like a different role and appreciation for the sport that I didn't have before.
Yeah. So with your injury, have you been able to run at all?
No, and we've tried.
Yeah.
So actually, I've been aqua jogging in the pool for the
Oh,
past like
okay.
over like month and a half. So that's the best thing. That's the most equivalent to running because like even elliptical is very painful for me.
Okay.
So I do aqua jogging, like wear this like fancy schmancy little belt and stuff, and so I do a lot of things based off of heart rate just to try to keep my cardio up. So I can do workouts and stuff based on time and heart rate. And I still kind of simulate like a long run and do it for a long duration. So you sometimes you just got to work with what you got.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been very interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Is this, I mean, probably been the longest time you've gone without running since you were in middle school and this all started?
Yeah, like it's like crazy because I think the most I've ever taken off probably was maybe, yeah, probably middle school. So I've kind of gone stir crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. So you said you kind of did get to see it from like a different role or a different perspective for this cross country season. What was that like? Like, were you trying to like help out and like with like timing and just supporting your teammates? What did that look like?
So, well, for one, we've had some teammates that have had some like injuries that have kept them out, and I don't think I ever completely understood how they felt. And now I'm like, wow, I really feel what you felt. And then secondly, cross country, track, they can be very individualized sports, but then they can also be a team sport. And I think for the longest time, I thought I was a team player, but I think I still took a more individualized approach. And I feel like now I see what it takes to be a real true teammate. And I'm really just trying to work on that. And I know I'm far from perfect with it, but I really tried to help out when I can, to be supportive because um, some of my teammates, I can read them very well. And I know when they need, a little like, you're fine, you're okay. And I can be that person. Um, you know, I really, I just like to be involved in that role. I like to be that encourager and even cheering for like other teams because this sport has really brought me a community, not only just with our team, but like I've made so many friends within the MEC, whether it was like the starting line, the Porta John line, like, but we're all so supportive of each other. So that's something I know I can still do even with being out. So
Yeah. So indoor season just kicked off this past week.
mm-hmm.
So what does I guess like the schedule look like in a way for like getting through indoor season and then kicking off outdoor season? And then I guess if you don't really have a timeline, that's completely fine too. But like, do you have a really like a goal or a time for when you are hoping to be back by?
I would love to be able to compete for indoor, but I'm not sure yet. We're still waiting on some things. But for as our team goes, we just kicked it off, and I thought everyone did really good. So, some of my teammates are on a little bit of a break. So my hope is that once they get back up, then maybe I'm ready to get back up too, because I'm gonna be starting from scratch again, and I realize that. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then I don't know that they've released our outdoor season schedule, but that'll probably start sometime in March.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people use running as like just like a way to relax, to do something for themselves, for like their mental health, for fun, whatever that is. Are you able to do that? And are you able to separate like in your mind the difference between running competitively and then running like just for yourself?
Yeah, and I don't know that I was able to do that before until now. I think I have found a true appreciation for it.
Yeah.
There was a period of time where it just felt like a chore. It didn't feel like it felt like sometimes it was causing me more stress. And a lot of that was just because of the expectations I placed on myself. And I probably one of the times that I know for sure that running was like just a part of me that I found like true love with was when I ran the trail championship. The video of me like finishing, like it makes me laugh when I watch because I'd never felt so happy when I finished a race in my life. Like I felt like I was so at peace. For one, I like being out in the woods, so running, getting muddy, like hitting those switchbacks was just like nothing like I've ever felt before. Um, and so now not being able to do it, like I'm just itching for that little adrenaline rush, that sense of accomplishment. And Coach Simpson had said once before when I was like, was kind of in a rut and like struggling to just get out the door to run. And he was like, yeah, you'll have that. But he's like, I guarantee you that after you run, you'll never have a feeling like, oh man, I wish I didn't run today. He's like, you'll always be like, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's my answer for that.
I feel like with what you just said, you pretty much answered my next question. But do you feel like um, your relationship with running will change post college? And like once you come back from your injury, or do you think that you're gonna just continue to run competitively in any capacity as long as you can?
I think it's gonna change a little bit, but I'm still gonna go competitively because
Mhm.
I'm so competitive about everything.
Yeah.
But I would like to, check out some of the longer distances. I'm gonna use like the idea I guess I have is to capitalize off of my college fitness and just start trying different things
Mhm.
because back in the spring I ran the Ogden Marathon or half marathon, excuse me, and that was pretty brutal, pretty
Yeah, I
tough.
walked that
Yes,
one.
you would know. It was
I
pretty
walked though.
it was rough, but I was like, there's like something about the environment of the people there, just, the challenge, the having to grit through something like that. So I really see myself at least trying a marathon, maybe dabbling in trail running, and
Yeah.
I also would love to try like the triathlon because I have a swimming background,
Mhm.
so just train a little bit more in the cycling. So I still see myself being competitive, um, just maybe to a different degree, and being a little more relaxed about my training because I'm going to be having an adult job.
Yeah.
You don't always have like, oh, I just have practice in class today. Like, no, I'm going to have a schedule that I'm going to have to fit that in around.
Yeah. Do you have any other like final like thoughts or stories or anything from your time running here that's maybe like come to mind or that you want to say before we move on to academics?
I don't know. When I think about, my mom would always ask me, she's like, are you sure you really want to do this? She's like, are you able to balance school? Are you able to, I was like, I don't know. And honestly, it's something I will never regret doing because it's brought me the closest friends I've ever had.
Mhm.
Um, my teammates have always been very supportive, and you don't just find something like this every day.
Yeah.
So I'm just really thankful for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, all right, well, we'll kind of transition away from running and into academics and school.
Okay.
So, since it is your fifth year here, talk a little bit about um, like what you got your undergrad degree in, what you're working on now, and maybe like why you went that
Okay. So I got my undergrad degree in exercise physiology.
route. Okay.
That was not the initial intent. I
Really?
came here to do athletic training, and
Okay.
so and then I switched to the exercise physiology degree because I was going to be in their master's program. Fortunately, about 3 years in, they cut that program, and so I was kind of in the middle of a dilemma because the the master's program you had to have your 3 years of my undergrad, the like exercise physiology curriculum, and then you have to complete your first year of your master's to get your bachelor's. So
Okay.
that was like kind of weird. So then I'm like, well, if the program's done and
What do I do?
I'm like, I don't even have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
So I was a few classes short, but I was able to make those up in the summer.
Oh,
So I
that's so
graduated
nice.
in August, and but then this was around like finals week when I found this out. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Do I leave here to go find another athletic training program?
Hmm.
Do I switch degrees? Because we had just started the exercise physiology master's program.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, but I don't want to just impulsively leave West Lib.
Yeah.
So I applied for the ex-phys program, and I got in, and I thought about it, and I was like, I just feel like in my gut that this is the right thing to do right now. So I did, got accepted, and so I'm finishing up actually in that program, and I'm a grad assistant currently. I wasn't
Nice.
last year, but one opened up, and so I've actually fell in love with that. I always thought I wanted to do athletic training. I thought like, oh, I want to be involved with sports, but I've come to find that like I've kind of felt a passion for teaching,
Okay.
and establishing rapport with like the students that I get to teach in class, and just being really involved and like acting as like almost like a mentor
Mm-hmm.
has been like very fulfilling. And so I definitely can see myself going back for a doctorate.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you so you graduate in May?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have plans for like what you want to do as soon as you graduate? Like, would you like to work before you would go back to school, or just like an
Yes.
idea?
Yeah, I would like to go back. I would like to work before I go back to school because I would like to go for my doctorate in education and be a
Okay.
professor. Um, but every professor that I found very valuable, they've had that in the field experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get some experience before that.
Nice. All right. Well, we're to my one of my favorite parts that we do every episode, and
Okay.
we're gonna do rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And they're all Christmas themed because now that we're like in December, everything is acceptable to be Christmassy. So some of these are like Christmas decoration themed. So when it comes to your Christmas tree, do you do a real tree or a fake tree?
Thank.
Do you like more of like the classic and traditional Christmas colors or like the bright Christmas colors?
Oh, the classics.
Yeah. Um, as far as like Christmas lights, are you gonna go with white lights or like colorful lights?
Probably white.
All right, what's your favorite Christmas movie?
Home Alone.
What's your favorite Christmas song?
Oh, okay. This is kind of like a wild another, but it's instrumental. It's Wizards in Winter.
Oh,
I always used to like get into that as a kid when I'd hear it. And it's like so good, but it's like I don't know. It's really good.
love that. People watching this, you can't see in the background, but producer Logan is nodding his head, so he agrees with that answer. All right, and then the last one, do you have like a favorite Christmas tradition that you and your family do?
Actually, we did it this past weekend. My grandma, when she was still alive, she always did this like tree decorating party,
Uh-huh.
and she's always collected ornaments everywhere she traveled. And so my cousin started the tradition up. Oh, I don't know how many years ago, but we continue to do it. And my grandma always said that the rule was you had to put 20 ornaments on. Whoever showed up had to do 20 ornaments on. And so I started enforcing that in her honor. So we always do like just a little snacks and just we invite friends, family, people just around town, and that's just always been a very great way to start the season off.
Yeah,
So
that is so fun. All right, so this is the last question, and it's what I close every single episode with.
okay.
And so my question is, if you could go back in time to your freshman move-in day, what would you tell yourself then based off of what you know now?
Definitely be to give yourself some grace, and don't be too hard on yourself because life's going to throw a lot of curveballs at you, but um, you know God's going to be with you this whole time, and you're going to get through it. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. All right, well, thank you so much for being today's guest on the podcast. I loved having you, and I'm excited for everyone to listen and watch. Um, all right, well, finals week is over now, and our fall semester has finished up, but we still have some athletic events coming up this week. Indoor track is on the road both today and tomorrow at the Spire Institute and at Green Valley State. Men's and women's basketball are home tomorrow against West Virginia State, and then our women's basketball team is away both Tuesday at Walsh and Thursday at Ohio Dominican, and our wrestling team is away at Findlay this Sunday. Make sure that you follow WLU Athletics on all social media platforms, follow the Locker Room podcast on Instagram, and subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of our updates and our announcements. All right, thank you again so much for listening to today's episode, and make sure that you tune in again next Friday when I'm back to talk to MEC Libero of the Year, Nia Setla.